Hi folks, thanks for turning into this video. If it's your first time here on my channel, a special welcome to you. I talk about the history of religions and spiritual movements, and today I'm beginning a series on the religion of ancient Egypt. And since the ancient dynasties of Egypt lasted about 3,200 years, that's a lot to cover. Plus, there were about 4,000 years of pre-dynastic life in Egypt, and the origins of the later religion are found there as well. So in this video, this first video, I want to share how scholars find their information about this religion in this ancient kingdom. Then in future videos, I'll present the different beliefs and practices through the various kingdom divisions and talk about myths and pyramids, mummies, and more. And at the same time, I won't forget to continue with some of the other groups that we've already been studying together. So where do we find this information about religion in ancient Egypt? First and foremost are the hieroglyphs. The ancient hieroglyphic texts are found everywhere, on temple walls, on stelae, inside pyramids, on the inner walls of burial chambers, on the outside and the inside of coffins, on papyri, on amulets, and monuments. Egyptians recorded their history, their everyday life, and their religion in stone. So unlike many other peoples that I've mentioned whose writings did not survive from antiquity, that is not the case with Egypt. For a long time, archaeologists and others who were studying Egypt, the Egyptian writing, couldn't decipher the text. At first glance, the hieroglyphs appear to be picture writing. They often represent natural objects like the sun or animals. Is the picture of a bird a story about a bird? Well, with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, the hieroglyphs have been deciphered, and we know these images are letters that spell words just like in other languages. They can also be used in other ways, but more about them in a future video. How else do we know about the Egyptian religion? Through the buildings that the Egyptians built. Now, despite what speculative ancient alien researchers might propose, the pyramids were built to bury the pharaohs. The development of the building of the earliest pyramids has been traced. Some of the early ones were big failures. The successful ones have been extensively investigated, and they include burial chambers for the pharaoh, storage area for his goods, and more. Moving back further in history from the pyramids for burying the pharaoh are the mastabas. These were rectangular shaped one-story buildings built on top of underground burials, and their purpose was to protect the bodies from weather and robbers. And even farther back, we find that the Egyptians were being buried in sand pits. Now, these are the earliest remaining burials. Very few remain to be investigated, but the few that did have provided insight into the beliefs and practice of the earliest religion. So, why do all these tombs and burials tell us about the religion? Well, first of all, they tell us that the Egyptians were obsessed with the afterlife. It was extremely important that a body be preserved properly to survive into the time of resurrection or passing over into the new life. That's why grave goods were provided to help the person make the journey. These grave goods also included the pyramid or the coffin texts that I mentioned. These were instructions about how to navigate the journey and magical texts that could be used to proceed through all kinds of situations. For years following death, offerings are brought to the dead to sustain them. Now, the Egyptians also wrote books on papyrus about the religion. Perhaps the most famous you may have heard of is the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Everything you ever wanted to know but were afraid to ask about being dead. And so a vast part of the religion focused on the afterlife, and for the pharaohs and the high status people, their resurrection. Now, we also find that near the pyramids, the Egyptians built entire complexes of buildings to accommodate the dead pharaoh. There was the place where the person was mummified. That was an intricate process by professionals, and it took 70 days to complete. And you've probably all seen videos or photos of mummies, or perhaps you've seen them in museums. Once the mummy was ready, it was transported by a ritual procession through a long esplanade to the pyramid for burial. At the base of the pyramid, a temple was built, and here is where offerings were made on behalf of the deceased to sustain him, as I've already mentioned. So why so much attention to the burial of a pharaoh? While he was alive, the pharaoh was considered almost divine. He was the connection between the gods and the people. Once he died, however, the pharaoh was considered divine. He had or would join the gods. Now, there was more to religion than the afterlife. There were the gods themselves. Egyptian religion was polytheistic, that is, having many gods, and myths surrounded the activities of the gods. The basic premise was that the gods kept order in the cosmos. If the gods were dissatisfied with you, then chaos could result. It was the gods who controlled the weather, the Nile that sustained the nation, crops, birth, and the outcome of conflict. So both national deities and local or personal gods had to be attended to. Now, temples were built containing the statues of the various gods who were served by priests. Images of the gods and their stories decorate the various temples. These temples are not like our churches, synagogues, or mosques where people gather and worship together. Temples were homes for representations of gods, where they were attended to and received offerings brought by the priests. The temples were usually built near the major city where a specific god was worshipped. The popularity of the individual gods varied and changed over time. Sometimes one or the other was considered the primary deity. There was even one time when the pharaoh Akhenaten replaced the major gods of Re, Amun, Isis, and others with one single god, the Aten, the sun god. Well, here's a spoiler. That didn't last. Egypt got rid of him and brought back the old gods. So this religion was definitely fluid. We learn this by tracing the writings and the physical archaeology through time. Yet we see, while changeable, their religion gave stability to the Egyptian culture. To get a glimpse of that stability, let me compare. The United States is now about 240 years old and considers itself quite an achievement. Ancient Egypt was an empire of about 3,200 years, not counting the pre-dynastic period or the last 2,000 years of modern Egypt. So the U.S. only has to last for 3,000 more years to be even compared to ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptian religion and mythology left behind many writings and monuments, along with significant influences on ancient and modern cultures. Well, I hope you'll watch for future videos on this topic as I explore the myriad aspects of this religious world. It is really amazing. As always, I invite you to subscribe to my channel and leave your comments and questions. So until next time, stay safe and well. Be at peace. I'll see you soon.